I appreciate everybody taking a little time out of their day to join us. I always like to say hi to the folks that are there. I noticed Dan Spielman's on the line today, so good morning to you. This is actually a pleasure. I always enjoy when I get to work with Mike and Rick. I've known them both since I came to IBM back in 2015. Rick Rick was very near and dear to me when I came in because I immediately joined the Flash system family. And the Flash system family was through an acquisition um, of another company, Texas Memory Systems. And Rick had a ton of knowledge about them. So it was really great meeting him early on. Then I came across Mike and found out when I didn't know the answers, I could go and complain to Mike. And if Mike didn't know him, he would help find who did. Um, so it's a good group that we've got with us today, and we're going to talk about a subject that's I know near and dear to the three of us, and that is software defined storage. And obviously, in our case, storage virtualized, which many of us are still having a hard time saying correctly because we knew it as Spectrum virtualized for the longest time. I was in a meeting earlier today, and one of the people was told they had to put money in the jar because they referred to it as Spectrum virtualized. Uh, but under the new naming convention, we're talking about storage virtualized. And, let me do this, Mike. Let me just kick it off to you to see if you have anything you'd like to open with.
Well, no, listen, there's a lot going on, especially this quarter. An incredible amount of announcements that have happened around our flash systems, right? And we've got the 20-year anniversary, right, from a virtualization standpoint. We'll probably talk about that and celebrate that. But that's when you think that in the context of the competition and the level of consistency that we have, Roger, across our flash system portfolio, I know we'll get into it. That's incredibly exciting. That's our backbone, right? So this topic is near and dear to all of us. So we're really excited about that. But with that, we continue to try and put programs together for our partners to leverage and ultimately put incredible offers in front of our clients. So as we go through that, we'll sprinkle a little bit of those things around because there are a lot of things that we need you to take away, a lot of money and stuff on the table that need everybody to make sure that they're understanding. So Roger, I'll leave it at that. I'll kind of park a couple of plant a couple of seeds as we go through our tech talks here.
Okay. And you said an important thing. And folks, this really is important. I mean, Mike said we're celebrating the 20th anniversary, and he is absolutely correct. What we call storage virtualized today was originally introduced by IBM in 2003. And a lot of us are familiar with the SAN volume controller, or what we just, euphemistically call SVC. It's much easier, rolls off the tongue quicker. Um, I became familiar with that product while I was with another company because we were competing against it, trying to get IBM to take our solution. And, here we are 20 years later, and IBM is still utilizing storage virtualize. And that is an amazing amount of longevity in the computer business. I've always told my wife that, computer years are like dog years, just multiply by 7 because things change so much. So we're looking at an incredible lifespan on this. And it goes to the heart of the beauty of software defined storage. is that it constantly can be updated and enhanced and improved. And one of the best things is that the value just keeps building for the client. It's not a case of you bought it, now pay me more money and I'll give you this new feature. In fact, it's you bought it and here's the new features. Um, and people say, well, like what? Well, once upon a time, we didn't have the ability to do deduplication. Now we do. That was an ability that was added. There's a new ability about to come out the end of this month. I won't say it quite yet. We'll talk about it a little later in the presentation, give you a reason to stick around. Um, but in particular, there is one ability in storage virtualized, and the name implies it. And that is the ability to virtualize other storage systems. So, Rick, if I could bring you into the conversation here, what are your thoughts around storage virtualization? How big of an issue is this as you're dealing with clients?
So thanks, guys. So I want to throw something out here before I answer that question, Roger. I just want to throw out here that Scott asked me what my title was, and I told him the dumb sales guy. I am one of those guys where I'm not technologically, uh, superior anyway. I'm a dumb sales guy. So what I want to bring to the table here is the dumb guy, sales guy's point of view, and just tell you, you know what? As salespeople, there are certain things that we need to not only understand but portray to the customer, and that really is. I come from Texas Memory Systems, the patents, the IP, everything for flash systems. A lot of all the performance and everything we do is because of that company. But here's the real deal, guys. Performance is cool, but only about 15 or 20% of customers' data need performance. So if you lead the conversation with performance, you're really leading with a 15% chance of talking to what the customer needs. If you lead with functionalities and performance, then you're talking about something that nobody else has, and that's storage virtualized. So what do most salespeople lead with storage virtualized as the operating system for flash systems? But as Roger alluded to, the name implies that it does virtualization. So let's take a step and let's kind of dig in what that means. Anybody ever heard of VMware? VMware came out in 2003 and said, you know what? We're going to take all your servers, literally put black electric tape over top of the name of the server, and we're literally going to take cache and CPU power, and we're going to put it into a pool so that no longer is it seen as various different manufacturers' products, but nothing more than a pool of servers. Storage Virtualized does the exact same thing, guys. Instead of looking at block storage as an HP, a NetApp, a IBM, a Pure, whatever, we bring Storage Virtualized as the operating system, and now we can bring it in and virtualize, do the exact same thing VMware did with servers, but do it on the customer storage. You might say, what benefit would that bring me? Ask your customers what benefit VMware brought to their server environment. And then they'll understand what a just immaculate product that Storage Virtualized brings to the table. Here's what it does, guys. It can take, let's say you have your customer, which is not at all uncommon. Let's say they have 3 or 4 different types of storage, block storage. If they have 3 or 4, they have 3 or 4 people managing that storage. If they initiate storage virtualize and virtualize all the block storage, now they need one person. What do they do with the other 2 or 3 people? Do they fire them? No. You have customers that want to go to modern workloads, perhaps AI, IoT, analytics, machine learning, whatever it might be. Possibly they don't have the money and the budget to go out there and hire those people. By implementing storage virtualized and now virtualizing the storage and having a single interface, you no longer need 3 or 4 people. You just need one. What do you do with those other people? Put them off into the modern workloads. And by doing that, you just allowed them to be more competitive in the marketplace. And now you start to see why hardware is cool, man. But software defined storage, and in particular, what Storage Virtualized brings to the table is the deepest software defined stack in the industry. And bringing the virtualization piece is just the beginning of the story.
Oh, that's fair. I love listening to you talk about it, Rick, because you really do get into it and you really do help people look at it, I think, with a fresh set of eyes. And
Roger, I do have an
unfortunately,
issue with him because he calls himself the dumb sales guy. I now have to go through therapy because that's a bunch of hoo-ha. Okay. So thanks for that, Rick. But listen, I want to chime in on something that he said that a lot of our clients are dealing with, whether they're going through acquisitions, whether they're uh, trying to stay with the latest and greatest. That our storage virtualization really allows them to manage through all that, right? Whether you got a competitive array installed, you can virtualize and take all the capabilities of a flash system, right? It's amazing. Whether you're in the cloud, all these things from a virtualization standpoint, we enable that management, right, on that with that layer. That's it's I guess I like to use the term that it gives you the ultimate flexibility and ultimately do things in a manageable way. Like Rick says, you can put some folks that might have been in different areas helping manage that block storage now can go do other things, right? It does enable you, but it allows you to lower your costs. So not only at a human level, but at a storage level, and that's huge, right? When you start thinking about easy tier and some other things that you're going to do, you're going to lower your costs and be able to leverage the performance, the sustainability factors, everything tied to our flash systems. So, I kind of wanted to throw that as some table stakes, Roger, that are out there that a lot of times we don't leverage in our conversations.
well, I appreciate that. And if I could build on that just a little bit, um, both Rick and Mike talked about clients having a heterogeneous environment. And, I'll be honest, if I was a client, I would do it too. In a way, it's short-sighted, but the belief is, well, if I play multiple vendors against each other, I'm going to get the best price from each one. And that's likely quite true. But then you sadly discover, and they never seem to learn, it doesn't stick with them, but you discover that the cost of managing those storage systems is more than the cost that you would ever save by playing them off. Now, both Mike and Rick talked about the fact that if we do use our software defined storage layer and extend it over those Pure systems or Dell or HP, whatever, we can reduce the cost of human capital down because now management becomes easier and we spend less time. And where this also gets very interesting is when we look at moving to the cloud, and everyone is moving or in the cloud to one degree or another. But we bring that same software defined layer to the cloud. So, just picture the vendor, the client who has, say, Dell, Pure, and HP in their facility. Well, each one of those systems has their own APIs, they have their own scripts. Everything is unique. They're all able to get to the cloud, but they all do it different. And with storage virtualized coming in and providing a uniform virtualization layer, we can now take all of them to the cloud with one set of APIs and one set of scripts and genuinely simplify that human capital that's necessary. But there's also something else. And we talked about this early on, and that is that as software defined storage, and I know a lot of us, when we think of flash system, we think hardware. But Rick was really right. If we think software and we think the feature set we're bringing rather than the physical implementation that it's taking, it helps us. And we have introduced over the course of time huge, huge things from a client standpoint. One of the biggest being that a couple years ago, we brought a capability over from the mainframe, and I'm referring to safeguarded copy. Today, the number one issue for virtually everybody is cybersecurity. You can't escape it. If your company's big, if it's small, if it's anything in between, cybersecurity just weighs on your mind all the time. Well, IBM came along and said, you know what? Anybody can protect your secondary workloads. We can all move data, to say tape. And that's great. That you make no mistake. That's fantastic that multiple companies can do that. The problem is recovery time. You just can't recover quickly when you have to go get tape, which thankfully is protected. It's air gapped off site. But now with safeguarded copy and a virtual air gap, we can recover amazingly fast. But that's the selfish view. Now let's look at the beneficial view. If we reach out and virtualize that Pure box or that Dell box or that HP box, guess what they can do? They can now have safeguarded copy. And so we literally can share the goodness with folks. And that is something we don't think about enough. And I'm going to throw this over to Mike because I know this is a pet project of his. One of the problems we've had is getting people to take the leap and say, well, okay, yeah, I'd kind of like to virtualize my system, but I don't really want to spend a lot of money doing it. So, Mike, is there a better way that we could do this? You're you're on mute, buddy. You look excited, but you're
I'm
muted.
really excited. I wanted everybody to see my picture first, how excited I was. Listen, it is exciting. And, as partners and IBMers out there, we do have the ability at no cost to let our clients, when they purchase a 5200, 7300, or 9500, virtualize those competitive arrays. So we do have a program called Better Way to Grow. It's a simple form. It kicks in an RPQ, and you can add it when you do a 5200, 7300, or 9500. Now, we've just updated this program. It's actually it's a lot simpler. You don't have to do a physical score request anymore in Seismic. There's an email, either as a partner or as an IBMer. You can fill it out, make that request. Couple things, team. We will virtualize 5 competitive arrays, unlimited capacity. Okay, so as you, I use this as a way of getting clients over the hump, as Roger alluded to. I don't want that to impede your ability to have a client move to a flash system and allow them to see the capabilities of our storage virtualization. I only ask that it is a competitive array, that you don't have SVC installed somewhere already in that account. If they got the competitive array and no SVC installed, it's going to be a fast and easy approval, and you'll get the 3-year support on the virtualization against those competitive arrays. And again, our whole goal is, let's get them started. They're going to see exactly what Roger heard or talked about, right? And what Rick talked about. They're going to get to see that. They can sweat those assets out. In my humble opinion, they're going to say, why am I paying services for those assets when I can move the flash system? Realize what I'm realizing here with the 52 or 73 or 9500 that I just purchased. And I think that's just going to, that'll do exactly what we all want. We get the stuff on their floor, and they get to start seeing what the true capabilities of our flash systems over what that competitive arrays installed, right? And that's where the sustainability, right? You'll hear us talk about that. You'll hear us talk about the true TCO, the true density of our flash core modules. Sorry, little commercials in there, Roger. I'm going to throw them in there as I go along. But those are all things that are tied to why end to end hardware and software together, we can't be beat. So better way to grow program. It's in seismic. It's simpler. We've increased it to 5 competitive arrays, unlimited capacity. Let's make sure we leverage that.
And folks, just so you know that this is not a very expensive proposition, you can actually obtain that if your client buys a 5200 with just 3 FlashCore modules. They can virtualize up to 5 systems of unlimited capacity. Um, that's hard to beat. Um, Now, again, our topic really is about software-defined storage. So I do want to point out something that's happening this month. We teased it a little earlier in the session, and this is the perfect example of why software-defined storage is such a compelling proposition. Yes, we think of flash system, and here's this hardware system, but really that's in effect the appliance that we've just chosen to run the storage virtualized software with. But we mentioned you could also get it with SAN volume controller. You could get it with storage virtualized for public cloud. But some of you, maybe all of you, hopefully, have heard that IBM is about to introduce, and it's part of storage virtualized software, inline data corruption detection. IBM is already leading the pack. And guys, I don't say that lightly. It's not a question of if we are. We are. We have seen no one who can match the recovery speed that IBM is delivering when a cyber incident occurs because of safeguarded copy. Well, now we are building right into the software this inline data corruption detection. And now within minutes, we can spot that there is some kind of unusual activity taking place. It's possible that it might be a benign thing, but nowadays it's becoming too risky to just make that assumption. So one of the things that this will do is it will spot it, it will send a trigger and an alert, and you can then utilize that to do things like immediately initiate safeguarded copies before stuff starts spreading through your system. And what is our cost going to be for this? Zero. If you own the software, it's just going to be part of the next upgrade to the software, Storage Virtualized 8.6.0. So this again goes right to the heart of why this is such a significant change. And um, if I could, I'd like to share really quick a story with you that Mike shared with me back a while ago. And, I apologize that we can't actually share the client because it's not a publicly approved example, but there's a mid-sized bank that the IBM team went into because they heard, and they went in with a business partner. Business partner brought them in. They'd heard that the bank, who owned a pair of Dell systems that they had bought, these were Unity storage systems, um, towards the end of Unity, but they were still active current systems. The bank had bought a pair of them to put in 2 locations and immediately started figuring out that they could not meet their SLAs with these systems, but they'd owned them too long to get rid of them. And they had too much money in them to get rid of them. And when the team heard that, they brought up this a better way to grow. And long story short, the bank bought a pair of 5200s to put in the 2 locations. They virtualized the existing Dell systems, and they're able to even do things like safeguarded copy with those Dell systems, using them almost as secondary storage. But this is the power of that software-defined storage. And, we've talked about the virtualization, and the virtualization is just that blanket that lays over the top of them. There's all the features underneath. The fact that we provide synchronous and asynchronous replication, asynchronous with change volumes, easy tier, AI-driven, non-policy based software. Again, reduces the human management capital. There's just feature after feature that is present. And I'll actually be quiet and let Mike or Rick, either one, bring up some things that they may want to talk about.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Mike, as a salesperson, there's two things that I find that are unique pieces above and beyond the ability to virtualize nearly anybody's block storage. But the first one would be, imagine if you have a customer and they make up a number, 200 terabytes, and they're going to put an RFP out for 200 terabytes. Well, you and the partner and 46 other companies are going to go out there and try to compete on this thing, right? So good for them. Somebody wins eventually. The customer, by the way, has to expense all the time management of this proposal and so forth just to put it out there. Imagine this. What if you as a partner or IBM seller provide that quote of just what they're looking for, but you also provide a supplemental quote that simply says, Mr. or Mrs. Prospect, what if using storage virtualized, I could give you 2 to 3 times more capacity from the block storage you already have sitting on the floor, regardless. And how we can do that is storage virtualized is also our ability to do data reduction. So we can do the data reduction properties that include, compression and dedupe and so forth on not our storage, just our storage, but our competitors' block storage as well. So what if I can give you the 200 terabytes you already have sitting on the floor, and I can give you maybe 200 or 400 more terabytes simply because storage virtualized can give you that ability. Let me tell you what that does for you guys. Number one, let's say you took Roger's example and you bought a 3-drive 5200 to use that storage virtualized. All you increased is 1 U. Our competitors out there are going to increase 2, 3 U, whatever it might be. And then not only are you going to pay for the capacity and the box, but you're also going to have to throw another support mechanism in there that's going to cost them a lot of money. If you're trying to meet enterprise sustainability goals, guess what? That just went down the tube because you added more power and cooling and way more of the stuff than you needed. So when you start to look at it from the sales perspective, guys, the ability to use this software to your advantage as a salesperson and to talk about something that no other competitor can talk about. That's the beauty of it. So,
yeah, Rick, listen, all of us have mentioned sustainability. I know our partners and the IBMers out there. Listen, I understand you're starting to get questions. I will tell you in EMEA, so in our Europe, with our colleagues over there, this is a hot topic, and this message is resonating there right now. They're leveraging it. We're hearing more and more about it. But Rick, I like the idea of the supplement when we respond to a client. That sustainability, that density that we provide, whether it's our own systems or whether virtualization of the competitive array, lowers that center of gravity on density, and that is a huge statement. So everybody's trying to figure out how they do two things. One, they want to leverage it, right? Because you want to be competitive, right? You want to do something different than the proposal that a competing partner might be putting out there. So this message resonates. We have the tools. You have the TCO Go Now tool that allows you to put this message in a really nice, succinct way. So I ask you to make sure you're leveraging those things, because that is exactly what Rick is talking about. If we bring those things to the table, which are attributes really to what you're responding to, it's just we go above and beyond, and the competition can't do it. We do plenty of education on sustainability. Maybe we'll do a talk on that later on. But we've got great tools that really show how we're the best of breed versus the competition. So let's leverage those things and let's do exactly what Rick's talking about and add those extra pieces, which again are attributes to really to what the client's asking for.
Okay. Well, guys, let me jump in. There's a couple questions that have come in. John had asked where he could find details on the 5 systems virtualized for free, and I have put a link in the chat. I would encourage you go there now because once the webinar ends, of course, that link disappears from here. But um, anybody should be able to reach that. Uh, Dan inquired about how soon is the data distortion identified. And I believe we actually just had a meeting this morning where we were starting to talk about this, and there's a whole bunch of them in the next couple of weeks. But I believe that it's in about a 5-minute increment. I think you actually got that pretty darn close. And IBM has already mentioned that towards the end of the year, their goal, their hope is to have that down to effectively what they would call real time. And the question is to get the data corruption detection, is that with DRP only? The answer, to the best of my knowledge, is no. This is simply part of storage virtualized. And what we're doing is detecting unexpected anomalous change. But that doesn't necessarily tie itself to data reduction at the moment. It's seeing the data as it literally streams into the box, and we know of no one in the industry who is doing what we're doing. This honestly, we believe, is going to ratchet the data protection game, certainly the data detection game, up a number of notches. And one of the coolest things is, again, it's just part of the software defined layer. So it's going to be there for folks.
Roger, let me hit one more thing tied to this because this is at no cost as well. Listen, team, this is about this is early detection. This is really getting down to lowering the blast radius of getting hit by something malicious like this ransomware. Okay, so now with this, we're lowering that blast ratio. But here's what I'm going to ask you to do. We have cyber resilience workshops. This is a big piece of part of our cyber vault, our cyber resilience workshops. But we have a free CRAT assessment tool out there. This will become very apparent in a big part of that. If you go do a CRAT, let us do this with you. Please do a free CRAT with your client. It will expose places like this where this conversation, what we're having right now, will separate us from the company. It'll separate you. So let's leverage those things here. That's also in Seismic. It's near the same links and landing spots in Seismic that Roger shared with you earlier. But that is a game changer. If you go in and you have the conversation like that versus just a response to a hardware RFP, right? What we're doing here is we're putting the things in front of you that changes that price point game, even though we're extremely competitive and we had a 15% price decrease. I know, another commercial, sorry. But let's make sure that we're leveraging the angles that separate us from the competition, that separate you from those who are bidding against you with that client.
Okay. And another question came in. Does the inline data corruption, is that a storage virtualized feature, or will it be done at the FlashCore module level? And the answer is what's being announced this month, at the end of the month officially, is at the storage virtualized level. So we're looking at a volume level as the data streams into the box. And all I can say is IBM never seems to rest on our laurels. We just keep adding capability. So, I think you're going to continue to see a number of things happen over the course of time.
Well, Ron,
And
I think it's safe to say we're doing everything we can to get to real time.
there's
We're going to make
no
those changes to
question.
get there.
There's no question that is the goal, and I'm simply trying to be very legally circumspect here. Um, we are, speaking of time, we're pretty much out of time. And I really do appreciate everybody coming, and Mike and Rick contributing with us. And I want to offer a huge shout out to Todd Vernach, who's back in the country with us, who has been very selflessly helping others out there. So it's great to have you back, buddy.
Welcome back, Todd.
And with that, I will bring it to a close. We do look forward to seeing or hearing from folks next month. And Scott, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Roger. Again, thank you everybody who's attended. We certainly appreciate your interest and participation. As I said before, this recording will be sent up to our YouTube channel, and I will send a note out to everyone that attended with a link. In the interim, if you have any questions, reach out to any of us on the call here, and we'll be happy to give you a hand. Thanks again, everybody.